Hi guys, and welcome back to Barca Football's podcast. Been a week again, a week of football, Barcelona. No football actually. When the national break is in full power, and every Barca fan out there is dreading it, and so are we guys. We're hoping for our player to come back safely, and because the weeks following this one will be difficult. We have Sevilla, and then we do have a death round of games with Bayern and Real Madrid, and it feels like this is the defining moment of our season. And think of the team that's actually coming back up after this break. We'll have Gavi potentially, Frenkie de Jong, and even Araujo further down the line. So this team is actually getting some of the key players back, getting some of the main firepower back. And then hopefully the Camp Nou renovations also come in. So where do you want to start? There's so much going on again.
Let's start with Camp Nou. Apparently now we're hearing that it'll be March. We always thought
Mm,
that can't be December because it didn't look like that the stadium would be ready by December. But now there's official word that probably Barca won't be back at Camp Nou before March, which means the first. We'll be deep into Champions League by the time that happens. I do give credit where it's due, and the stadium has actually progressed because you can see the progress. Seats are being installed. The first tier have been built. The second tier, those pillars have been put,
mm.
the VIP boxes and so on and so forth. So there's work happening. There's no question on that. There's progress. There is no question on that. And an undertaking of this size is huge. It was always very ambitious to think that it will be done in 8 months flat or what have you. So I think it's normal, but I think we'll have to probably be content with Montjuic for
Marjorie.
this season, possibly. And then maybe what they will do is they will coincide with the 125 years of the club, the ceremony, what have you. And then they'll make a big show about it, then do a launch, all of that
Yeah.
stuff, go into 1:1, probably get a new striker, whatever. He'll
Yeah.
do a big thing around that. That's just what a politician like Laporta will do. And I would do the same thing. I don't blame him.
Yes.
But I think that's what will happen. I think this year, more or less, this season, I think more or less will still be mostly Montjuic as we have thought about. People will say, okay, you had said that you would go. Now you're saying it's yeah, it's a huge mammoth stadium. You can't really get it done in the time that they had said it would. It's just impossible. I'm very happy with the progress and the speed at which it has happened. These kind of delays are very normal in any infrastructure project, and this is a huge one, so it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, some things are just worth waiting for, Dev, and this is one of those things. And as I said, that's a very good point. Next year, so 2025, is looking to be a massive year for Barca. You do have the anniversary coming up. You do have the Camp Nou opening up to the public. You do have potentially a new big players coming in because Laporta will want someone to come in and actually cement another year, another round of his
Yes.
presidency. Yeah. So all that coming together in 1 year, it's looking like a massive thing for Barcelona. They will want to have all of that happening, not at once, but in the very short period of time within the same year. That's a very good point. I like that very much. But then, as I said, you can't really rush these things. Building a stadium this big, building a stadium that will be so impactful in world of football, so unique in world of football as well, I think takes time. And it's just funny though, the way that you see those videos of workers actually fighting among each other on the construction site. That was just those things happen as well. So you can expect delays. You can expect things not to go smoothly, and we know this. This team's a project, and Camp Nou being built as a project. And sometimes things happen, curveballs happen that you can't predict and can't really avoid even. And that kind of delays the whole process. So it's very normal. And to me, as you said, Dev, as well, if it gets done properly, it will be worth the wait. And I think will be done properly eventually, hopefully. And then once it is done, it'll be a massive boost for the team because Montjuic, as iconic as it is, as all the cultural importance that it does have, and it does have cultural importance and sporting importance overall, it's not Camp Nou, right? It's just the difference between those two atmospheres and those two respective stadiums is massive. Everyone fears coming to the Camp Nou, whereas no one probably fears coming to Montjuic. Yes, this team is playing really well, so they will fear the team, but they won't really fear the atmosphere. And Barca fans can be a really good supporter. We can get passionate, we can get loud when we need to be loud and passionate. But then on Montjuic, it doesn't. The effect is just not the same. So once the team does come back to Camp Nou and you get hundreds of thousands of supporters hyping out the players, it'll be completely different. This team can reach a new level once that happens. And if it has to happen next year as opposed to this year or in January,
It's a
yeah.
huge undertaking. And the fact
Absolutely.
that it's happening at this speed, I think we can all cut some slack and give the support where it's needed. They've done the best that they could do under the given circumstances and so on.
Mhm.
That brings us back to another contentious topic, which is the 1:1. And interesting stories coming out from everywhere. But to summarize, even if Nike happens, we won't reach the 1:1 until we figure out a way to solve for some of the pending payments from Barca Studios or Vision West, where we have a gap. But the smart thing that we have done is that we have written it off. We still have to get new investors in. And it looks like, based on what the club is saying, that they are confident that they're going to get some. But until they get some, they don't get some. So we don't know. Player sales can happen because one big player sale can make it happen, the gap, and
Mhm.
so on. And we both know that stories about Araujo or Frankie or what have you, even though if Frankie goes, it'll be on a free. So we don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. But the 1:1, long story short, is not a done and dusted, even in the window. I think we will enter the window with what we have. But
Mhm.
given our spate of injuries and what have you, I think we'll be able to register everyone successfully and okay. And this is the team that will play through the season for good or bad, whatever we win or we don't win. And then at the end of the year, by the time the season ends, we'll possibly get into 1:1 and we'll possibly get into Camp Nou. I think that's the more realistic take, and that's how they'll position it. And that can be very good if the season goes well. If the season unravels, right, which means we are kicked out of Champions League in a bad way, we lose terribly, and we also don't do well in the league, then the Porta has a problem because I think there will be a motion called out if
Mhm.
those things happen. But that would be my take on the whole 1:1 thing.
I think one of the key things that you mentioned, Dev, is player sales, right? Because we keep talking about a big sale happening because we need a big sale happening. No matter how you look at it, Barca need to generate that money from somewhere, and having a Frenkie de Jong or having an Araujo sold, it could do wonders for your financial situation. But then again, do you want to sell those players? Do you really want to sacrifice potentially a big part of your squad for financial health? No. So that's the discourse around that thing. But I think we will see someone, well, yeah, that we'll have to see someone leave this team, and who can be a sellable asset, because normally it will be Rafinha as well. We kept talking about Rafinha last year, and someone who has the quality, but someone who also has that market value that you can sell to someone. You can be like, oh, look at this Rafinha. He's a shining toy that you can add to your team. He's hardworking. He's very good at what he does. But also last year he wasn't that ceiling raiser for Barcelona. He wasn't that player that he is right. But now the whole script kind of flipped, right? Because now suddenly you have a Rafinha who's a sellable asset more so than ever because he's performing, but also he's performing, right? So do you want to sell that kind of a player? Because obviously he's very impactful from Hansi Flick. And then also you have this question of the coach as well. People have been saying this for a long time. Do you give Flick more than 1 year? You should give him more than 1 year, because how well can you actually build a project that is done in a year? You can't. With these kids, you need to give them time, give the coach the time necessary to kind of mold those players, to evolve them, to get the best out of them. You need more time than just one season. There's a lot of moving pieces here. There's a lot of ifs and a lot of question marks for me personally, because you have these sellable assets, but they are assets for a reason, right? Rafinha is an asset. Frenkie can be an asset, even though the fans have slightly turned on him more or less. But I think he can still be an asset in this team, and we'll talk about De Jong a bit more later on. But I think this is where a lot of things will be decided financially for Barcelona. Who do we sell? Who can we afford to sell? Who should be sacrificed without, not to the detriment of the team? So if we sell someone and we improve our finances, but in turn it just disrupts our whole sporting project, is it worth it in the end? Probably not, right? Because Barca want to win both on and off the pitch, and that's a very ungrateful thing for any coach and any president for that fact, because you just have to have it all at Barca. At Barca, you have to have the short term success, but you also have to have the long term project at the same time. And that's what bothered us as fans, because Xavi in particular, he was put in a situation where he basically had no win condition. Right? He had to win all. He had to do all of it. He had to paper off the cracks because there were so many cracks for Barcelona. He had to win short term. He had to win the league. He had to win the silverware, but he also had to set up the team for the long term. It was such an ungrateful thing to do. And Laporta and Flick, both of them are in this ungrateful situation at the same time. So it's very difficult, guys, to be a Barca coach, a Barca president, a Barca player, and even a Barca fan. It's not easy being a Barca fan either. So we also have a tough job. We have to keep our feet on the ground firmly, and those are expectations. But also at the same time, we want to be optimistic. We want to win all of it. We want to have a long-term project, but sometimes you just have to take it easy, slowly, step by step, day by day.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more on that. It is going to be hard, and that makes this era. I was thinking about it, and we have talked amongst ourselves that yes, it's been one of the hardest times for being a Barca fan the last 5, 6 years. And those who have been Barca fans, they will know that. Like, we haven't hardly won. There are issues everywhere, media, press, bad PR, name it, and we've had it, right? And we have not, the results have not been on the pitch. We have lost our best players, not in the best way, and it's just been terrible. But if you think at what has been achieved also through this, like the whole change of guard that happened over the time, a new team that has been formed today, the team on transfer market has more value than what it was. And the value is increasing because now you have kids, 20 years old, 23 years old. So that the price, the value of this team is only going to appreciate. Advertisement is only going to appreciate. And the core is gone, like the ghost of Messi, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Piqué, they're all gone. It's this team now, right? This is a massive transition that they have done. It took ages and has hurt a lot of people in many ways, but it has finally happened. And it's going to help us in the long run. So that's one. The second is the stadium. I think after 100 years, it's going to get a meaningful facelift, not just something like on the surface of it. It's going to be a really meaningful facelift that it's going to get. And that's going to last us for a few more years, right? Another 60, 70, 80 years, which is great. So the foundations are being laid, and you're part of that. You're watching that happen. That's an insane thing, right? We are part of this whole revolution that's happening right now. And to witness it after having been lucky enough to witness the best of Barca that anybody would have witnessed in the last 15 years when Messi was there and we won everything across the board. Yeah, it's just been cathartic, and it's just been an incredible experience as a fan to go through all of this, and it can't get worse. That brings us to the next topic, and that is, with Barca, there's always media, and with media, there's always gossip, and with gossip, there's always things that happen. And one of the things that we have been noticing lately is a documentary and comments made by Luis Enrique to Xavi. I love Luis Enrique as a person. I genuinely do. And I like his no nonsense. I like his prickliness. I like the way he handles the media directly. I like his no nonsense attitude. Like, he's a character, and you need these characters like Enrique, like Mourinho. You need these characters. That's what makes football so interesting. So I like that about him. And the fact that he was the one with whom we won the last Champions League. But I did find his going after Xavi a little bit over the top. And I don't know what is driving that, to be entirely honest with you. But comments like Ibar, long balls, and I don't want to paraphrase him because that's not the point. He's a world famous coach. I'm nobody. So mindful of all of that. And I did appreciate the fact that Xavi said not a single word in response. Not one thing have we heard from Xavi, even though so much had been said on media and so on and so forth. He would have also come out with comments, but he has really managed his dignity and his silence and let the situation play out, which I've appreciated a lot out of Xavi for everything that he has gone through. He's gone through a tough time, obviously, last 2 years, and then this year when he got sacked and what have you. But from Enrique, it was not necessary. He won it. Good for him. He won the tie. All this thing about who's playing better ball. Come on.
It is true that Xavi's Barca struggled a lot. It is true that Xavi's Barca played in a way that didn't always get the best out of their players. We don't claim to know better than Xavi or better than Enrique, but when we do see something that we don't like or don't think is the best thing for Barcelona, we'll call it out. So from Enrique to do that, what did he intend to gain from that? What can he gain from that in general? Saying that out loud to the media in a documentary that's going to be watched by thousands or if not millions of people, what does he stand to gain in that scenario, right? Absolutely nothing apart from negativity from the Barca side. When you think back to Luis Enrique's Barcelona, he had the same thing going against him as well. People were saying back then, this is not the Barcelona we used to. This is not the quote unquote traditional Barcelona way of playing the game, because his Barca were drastically different from Pep's Barca, right? That needs to be said. And people were very quick to point that out. So for him to come out now and say Xavi is not playing the Barca way, that's very ironic. If you try and translate that team to the current team, as you said, if you have a Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, and you put that into Xavi's team, I think Xavi performed 10 times better than he does with this team. And likewise, you give Enrique the team that Xavi had with all the injuries, all the missing pieces of the puzzle, he would struggle much, much more as well. So I think it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The same thing, as you said, that it wasn't necessary, really anything that could give Enrique anything. I don't think he can gain. That's the thing.
He didn't need to. He's a legend.
Yeah,
Barca
yeah.
fans
So
loved him.
So it's a tricky situation to be in. And yeah, full credit to Xavi, as you said. Xavi has been excellent in kind of handling all that. When he was the coach for Barca, what he would do, Xavi would always put himself in front of the players. He would be the shield for the players. Whenever there was criticism coming in their way, when there was toxicity coming their way, Xavi was there to take it all onto himself. He was
Exactly.
the one, I will take all the blame. I will take all the criticism that he did. Because all we did in that period Barca struggled, we all said, oh, Xavi this, Xavi that. We didn't say, oh, Araujo this, Araujo that. We said, Xavi was the one to be blamed, and he was absolutely fine taking all the blame. And fair play to him, that was a monumental thing that he did. And I think that alone, and just bridging that gap between Barca being in doom and gloom and Barca being high flying with Flick, that's Xavi.
We are a result driven society. So until we win thousands of awards, we don't. But the fact
Yeah.
that the man at the juncture that he came in, leaving what he did, the taking on the challenges that he did, the media, the viciousness, what have you, and the way the what he did at the foundation level, right? People don't see that, but
Yeah.
insane. What
Yeah.
he has done is insane for Barca, and only in time probably people will understand that and
Yeah.
give him the credit that it belongs. And that's why I feel that when Barca are again in a situation where they are strong and powerful, he actually comes back as a coach and has a winning tenure. All right. So the only other thing left is international break. Hopefully nobody breaks their leg or has an ACL or injured. That will be very bad, but looks like good days are about to come. What we are hearing is that Olmo, Gavi, Pedri, they're all with the team and they're all training and they're ready to make their comebacks, which is exactly what we need in this run between now and December so that we can enter the break with a substantial, hopefully a lead, hopefully better points on the table, both in Champions League and in La Liga. And couldn't have been better timing for them to return. But yeah, Dom, I would give it to you to talk about your thoughts on this before I add it.
It's amazing to me. It's incredible that we have been as successful as we have been in the flick with, as you keep saying there, with playing with a C team. And that's the right way, I think, to describe it, because this team, when you have a team that's fit, that doesn't have any injuries, that has all the superstars fit and ready to play, you wouldn't see this team that we are seeing right now play, not as much anyway. So to think that Barca might have an additional gear, that to me, that's very nice to hear, because in theory, having Frenkie and Gavi and Olmo and all these players come back from injury and actually being in the team, giving you at least the depth that you don't have right now, it means the world. Because once the crunch time comes, and it will come in the coming weeks and months, when you have multiple competition, you have players playing so many games on the international stage and the club football stage, you will need that depth. You will need that fitness. You will need that energy from all the players. And everyone will have to chip in with their own role, which we don't at the moment, or up until now, we didn't have that. Flick had the plan A, and then the plan B was, is there a plan B? Because we don't have the depth for a plan B. And that's what we keep trying to preview these games. We're like, but Flick can't do anything else because he doesn't have anything else on his disposal, right? He has a couple of players here and there that he can throw into the mix, but then those players are not necessarily good enough sometimes, right? So it has been very tricky for him to rotate the team and not lose out on quality. For Barca, it has been a huge issue because the difference between the starters and then the rotation that you have from your C and D teams, it's substantial, right? Just to have them all back and have Frankie back and have Gavi back. God, I miss Gavi. I miss it so much, and I can't wait to see him. And of course, we have to be very careful with all of them because they have suffered long-term injuries that could derail whole careers, let alone just they will need time. They will need time. So that's also there to consider. But just on the face of it, having a team that's finally getting fitter and getting healthier, just it's been so long. It's been so long, and I don't think that people out there who are not fans of Barca, who are maybe neutral or support our rivals, whatnot, they don't realize how difficult it has been. They look at the squad, they're like, "Oh, you're fine. You have Lamine, you have Pedri, you have Lewandowski. You're fine." Yeah, we are fine, but also we are missing like half of our starters still. Araujo, Frankie, Gavi, these players are monumental for us, right? So to have them back, it just unlocks a whole different level of this Barca, potentially a whole different level. Now, obviously, with these players being off for so long, there comes the issue of synergy and how they gel with the team, how they actually fit into the new tactics, because we have not seen them in these new tactics that Flick has. It'll be a very interesting couple of weeks, but on the face of it, like in a vacuum, it's good news for Barca. Absolutely good news.
Just after the break, we are going into a stretch of games which are tricky, and also when we will possibly have some of these players back. Now, my belief is if we can come out of that stretch in a good way, I think this team will be set up in a very good way. It's a good team and they need some confidence. They need some wins. They need some luck. If they get it their way, finally, with Flake into Christmas, I think we'll be in a very good condition to compete pretty well in the league. And we can also think about a trophy here and there. It might not be one of those bigger ones, but I think it's possible with this team. And that would be an achievement of massive proportions given the way the team has been set up and everything that has happened in between. So I do think it's a very good time for them to come back because these are players who can make a huge difference. They can make a difference in a second, and Olmo can make a difference in a second. A Gavi can make a difference in a second. So these players are fundamentally game changers. So as they come in, especially with the likes of Madrid and so on and so forth, all you have to do is to watch Barca versus Madrid when Gavi was on the pitch and Gavi wasn't on the pitch. You can see this like this year, now that Pedri thankfully, he hasn't fallen, he hasn't been injured. Thankfully, he has been playing well. And you're seeing his level going up. He's playing those 60, 70 minutes every game. You can feel that his confidence is back. He's playing much more, a lot more confidence and what have you. I think if that can happen with these, we'll be in a fantastic place, to be entirely honest. I think the games against Bayern and Dortmund and Atalanta are going to be hard, but I do still believe, even with all of that, I think we will qualify for the round of 16, whether it be the direct way or through the playoffs. So I'm very gung-ho about the players coming back. And then hopefully in the winter window, we'll make maybe one signing from here and there. Maybe it won't be the best signing in the world, but something, I don't know. That's what my feeling is. And that can set us up for the final run, which is from February till August. That's when everything get decided anyways. So that brings us to the last topic. And Dom has talked a lot about it, and we have done a pitch about it, and then we have threads, and we have done statistical analysis and so on and so forth. But we still wanted to talk about him. And that's the person is Frankie de Jong. Now, obviously, he is a player who divides the fan base massively. Some people love him. Some people dislike him. Some people want him gone. Some people say he's never good enough. All right. We are not coming at it from that perspective. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, for sure. But that said, where we are looking into is Frankie is right now, right here. He may leave next year. We know that. And that's possible. If that happens, you and I can't stop that. But for the time duration that he is in Barca, which is this season, till the end of this season, right? He can be a massive asset to Flick if used in the way.
There's a lot of talk or unpack around Frenkie de Jong. In general, just having that extra body, extra option of Frenkie de Jong, that's already massive, right? You have Casado, who's been performing absolutely brilliantly. I think Frenkie is still the better player. It shouldn't surprise that he is a better player because Casado is very young. Casado he's playing in his first senior season with Barcelona. So to me, individually in the vacuum, there's still no comparison really. But yes, Casado has been so good that it's difficult to bench him in general, right? So you have the whole synergy thing going on with you need players on the same page, especially for the big games like Real Madrid and Bayern and Sevilla and so on and so forth. But I think, as Dev said, Frenkie is here now. And there's no point in saying, oh, we don't need Frenkie, we don't want Frenkie, when he will likely be here for at least this season. So while we have him, it is in our best interest, in the club's best interest, in Flick's best interest to use him in the most optimal way. So that's why we want to look at how does he actually fit into this whole picture, because he will have to fit somewhere. He will obviously be available. Now he's available. He's slowly been bled back into the team, and to see what role he will assume, that's we are so objective and analytical and cold sometimes, because we will give you the facts. We'll say, okay, this is what he cannot do, with this what he can do. And to me, there's actually two things that we have to mention with de Jong. Number one is the tweak and the build-up phase. We know what Frenkie likes to do. He likes to drop very deep between the center backs or ahead of center backs. He likes to get the ball as the primary and the first receiver and then carry the ball forward. But as the old saying goes, Dev and everyone else, the ball is always quicker than the player. And what Flick needs and what is very adamant on is that the first phase needs to be lightning quick, right? The first phase needs to be very vertical, very direct. And from there, there's no in between, right? He has to be gung ho all the time because he wants that the ball to be transferred from the first phase, the midfield, to the second phase as quickly as possible. Obviously, Frankie can do that. He can connect the first and the second phase, but it's always going to be faster and much more smoother, more efficient if the ball is passed out of the back. So in that sense, I think what Flick will do is he will tell Frankie, okay, you will stay a bit higher up, and you will, instead of being the player that carries the ball forward, the ball will come to you in midfield. And if we can use Frankie in that sense, I think we'll get much more out of him. And so that's tweak number one that I think Flick will do or should do from my perspective when it comes to De Jong being in this team. Because if he does put him all the way down and lets him carry the ball, I think that will hurt Barca's fundamentals very too much. The second thing is, if you watch that video on Flick sustained pressure, we mentioned that there's the two layers of Barca's attack, right? The outer ring and the inner ring. Now, Frankie, as someone who can slot into the outer ring as this distributor and sweeper, right? So he can be someone who can play those passes over the top, create for the players that are in between the lines and in the pockets, but he can also use his athleticism to sweep up behind those players. Because you have players like Pedri, like Olmo, like Casado. All of those players are small space dominators, whereas Frankie is one of the unique profiles alongside Araujo, potentially, or Rafinha, who can run a lot. He can run the whole game. He can run across the pitch if necessary. And if you can instruct him to be that presence, to be someone who sweeps in behind, then you can get the best out of him as well. So I feel like there'll be a lot of mindset shifting because Frankie is not used to being a very laser focused defender. He will need to be that. He's not used to being someone who needs to focus on defending a lot more. So I think Flick needs to coach that into him. And if he can do that, so those two changes, I think Frankie can have a big role in this team. And once he actually gets going, and if he gets going, then it unlocks a new gear for Barcelona. Because on individual quality alone, Frankie is still, because if you look at the numbers, and from 2 seasons back when he was playing his last full season with Barcelona under Xavi, he was in the top 5% of it. He was crushing all the possession-based categories, from receiving passes, progression, dangerous passes, all that stuff. He was crushing all the numbers. So I feel like there's still a player of immense quality in Frenkie de Jong. Now, of course, we've been talking about unlocking Frankie for 5 years now. So some of you are rightfully saying, okay, it can't be done. But let's give Flick a shot as well, because Flick has been very good at identifying the strengths of the players and playing to those strengths. Now, can he do the same with Frankie? I hope so, because if he does do that, if he can do that, it'll be massive for us.
And people fell in love with the Frankie of Ajax, and they wanted to see that Frankie in Barca from day one. What they probably did not realize is that Ajax Frankie would never fit in Barca. Frankie had to adjust himself to play in Barca for the longest time. So the first few years that Frankie had, he could not even play his natural game, which is what we liked when we saw that Champions League performance from him in 2016, 2017. And we said, okay, we want this player. And Frankie was everywhere. I think then the idea of Frankie and the reality of Frankie has always been very different in Barca and Barca fan base. There is so much talk about his salary, so much about how much he earns and so on. It was Barca's decision to give him that money. You think about it, I go for a job and some company says, okay, I'm going to pay you $100, right, for this job. And I take this $100, but then people are upset that, oh, this job can be done for $10. You get $100. That's your fault. No, it's not my fault. The company decided to give me that fair and square. In this season, when we are playing with a team full of kids, honestly, it's like B team and C team players being pushed so that we can play. It's so bad that the B team does not have enough players to play. That's how bad it is. They had to cancel a game this week because they didn't have enough players, right? That tells you what situation Barcelona is in. In this season, when we're playing like that, a fit Frankie playing well is only going to help the team.
Yeah.
What happens in the summer, nobody knows. If he goes, that's fine. Even if he goes, we're not going to make too much money because he's going to leave on a free. It's not that we hate Frankie or we love Frankie or nothing like that at all. He's just a player who plays for the club. He's been playing for a long time. So we have looked into the situation. We have looked into the team. We have looked into the fit. Hopefully, for me, he plays a few good games under Hansi Flick. Hopefully we win a trophy, and I'll be the happiest person on the planet. As we go into the next week, there will be other stuff, and then we are getting ready for all the other games. So there will be match previews. There will be some other things that we will be doing. So keep a lookout on the social handles. Follow us on the blog. Follow us on Twitter, Twitch, wherever you want to As usual, we will follow this up with some content. From next week onward, it's going to be non-stop football action. So we're getting ready for that. And it's a phase of time that can pretty much define the season for us. So looking forward to that. As always, stay safe, take care. And as we always say, peace, Barca.